I thought I knew everything about Mark, my husband of 7 years. His laughter, his touch, his predictable routines were the constants in my life. But that weekend, as we drove up those winding mountain roads to visit his old college buddy, Tom, something felt different. Mark's eyes sparkled with a mischief I hadn't seen in years, like he was about to unveil a secret that could change everything. The mountain air was crisp, the trees whispered secrets. And as we stepped into Tom's world, a world where time slowed and rules bent, I felt an excitement I hadn't known I was missing. But when Mark suggested a game of truth or dare, I had no idea it would lead us down a path where the boundaries of our marriage would blur in ways I never imagined. What happened next was a moment that would forever alter the fabric of our relationship, leaving me to wonder, was this the beginning of something new, or the unraveling of everything we had built? The first thing you notice about me, Sarah, is that I'm not the kind of woman who's easily surprised. At 32, I've built a life that's as predictable as the sunrise. But then there's Mark, my husband of 7 years, who's anything but predictable. His eyes always sparkle with a hint of mischief, like he's got a secret he's just dying to share. That's why, when he suggested a weekend escape to see his old college buddy, Tom, I was intrigued. We drove up those winding mountain roads, the kind where the trees seem to whisper secrets as you pass. Mark was buzzing with excitement, his stories of college pranks and adventures with Tom filling the car with laughter. I was looking forward to stepping out of our city routine, to breathe in the crisp mountain air, to maybe find a piece of the wild spirit that Tom always carried with him. Tom's house was like stepping into another world. It was nestled among the pines, a place where time seemed to slow down. The moment we arrived, Tom enveloped us in a hug that smelled of paint and patchouli. His home was a gallery of his soul, every corner filled with vibrant canvases, the air thick with the scent of incense. We settled in, glasses of wine in hand, the conversation as smooth as the Merlot. Tom's stories were like a tapestry, woven with threads of adventure, love, and a touch of the forbidden. He spoke of nights under the stars, of love affairs that were as passionate as they were fleeting. Mark laughed, his eyes gleaming with nostalgia, while I found myself drawn into Tom's world, where the rules of society seemed to bend. As the evening deepened, the wine flowed more freely, and the room seemed to pulse with a life of its own. The conversation had shifted from light-hearted banter to something more intimate, more revealing. Mark, with that familiar glint in his eye, leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Let's play truth or dare," he suggested, his gaze sweeping over us with a challenge. We all laughed, the sound echoing off the high ceilings, but there was an undercurrent of excitement, of anticipation for what might unfold. The game started, innocently enough. Tom dared Mark to do an impression of our old college professor, which had us all in stitches. I chose truth, admitting to a secret crush on a high school teacher, which made Mark raise an eyebrow in playful jealousy. But as the night wore on, the dares grew bolder, the truths more intimate. Then came the moment that would push the boundaries of our friendship. Mark, with a mischievous smile, looked at me and said, "Sarah, I dare you to kiss Tom." The room fell silent, the only sound the crackling of the fire in the hearth. My heart raced, not just from the wine, but from the sudden shift in the atmosphere. I looked at Tom, his eyes meeting mine with a mix of surprise and curiosity. There was a moment where time seemed to stretch, the air charged with an unspoken question. I could feel Mark's eyes on us, his breath held in anticipation. Taking a deep breath, I leaned over, my lips brushing against Tom's in a kiss that was meant to be playful, but lingered longer than intended. The room seemed to tilt, the boundaries of our friendship blurring in that fleeting moment. When I pulled back from the kiss, the taste of Tom's lips still lingering on mine, a mix of wine and something uniquely him. The room was silent, the only sound the soft hum of the fire. Mark's eyes were alight with a mix of curiosity and something else, something I couldn't quite place. He broke the silence, his voice steady but with an edge of excitement. "That was fun," Mark said, his gaze shifting between Tom and me. "But let's take it a step further." He stood up, his movements deliberate as he retrieved his phone from his pocket and set it up on a tripod. "I want to record this," he announced, his voice carrying a tone of both command and invitation. I felt a rush of mixed emotions. Part of me was taken aback by the sudden shift into this bizarre scenario, yet there was an undeniable thrill, a curiosity about where this night could lead. The idea of being recorded added a layer of intensity, making the moment feel both more real and surreal. Tom, ever the free spirit, seemed to embrace the idea with a nod, his eyes reflecting the flickering flames, a spark of adventure in them. I looked at Mark, searching for any sign of hesitation or regret, but found none. Instead, his expression was one of eager anticipation. With a mix of hesitation and excitement, I agreed. "Okay," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "But let's keep it tasteful." The word felt odd in this context, but it was my way of setting a boundary, however thin. Mark adjusted the camera, ensuring it captured the scene perfectly. The red light blinked on, signaling we were live. The atmosphere in the room shifted, charged with an electric tension. Tom moved closer, his hand gently lifting my chin, his touch sending a shiver down my spine. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice low, giving me an out if I needed it. I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest, the thrill of the unknown mixing with the comfort of familiarity. The kiss that followed was different from the first. It was slower, more deliberate, as if we were both aware of unblinking gaze. The camera was rolling, capturing the moment. Mark directed us, his voice calm yet firm, telling us what to do. Tom, now fully embracing the role, moved closer to me, his hands exploring gently. The room felt charged with an electric energy, the boundaries of our relationship blurring. I felt a mix of emotions: confusion, thrill, and a strange sense of liberation. Mark watched through the lens, his expression unreadable. The act of being filmed added a layer of surrealism to the experience, making it feel like a performance rather than reality. As Tom and I engaged in what was now clearly an intimate encounter, Mark's voice occasionally broke the silence, giving directions or asking if we were okay. The situation was bizarre, yet there was an undeniable allure to the forbidden. Tom's touch was both familiar and foreign, a paradox that sent my mind into a whirl. His fingers traced the line of my jaw, his breath warm against my skin, and I couldn't help but respond. The room seemed to shrink, focusing only on the three of us, the rest of the world fading into obscurity. Mark's voice, steady and guiding, instructed us to shift positions, to look into each other's eyes, to convey emotion through our actions. I could see the lens focusing on us, capturing every nuance, every subtle shift in our expressions. The red light of the camera blinked like a heartbeat, a constant reminder that this was being recorded, that this moment would exist beyond tonight. The thrill of being watched, of performing for Mark, added an edge to the experience. It was as if we were actors in a play, our roles defined by the desires and fantasies of the director. Tom's lips found mine again, and this time, the kiss was deep, exploratory, as if we were both searching for something within each other. Mark's voice cut through the haze. "Sarah, tilt your head back slightly. Tom, let your hand rest on her waist." His directions were precise, almost clinical, yet they somehow fueled the intensity of the moment. I felt myself being drawn into this new dynamic, the boundaries of our marriage stretching, bending in ways I hadn't anticipated. Was this as Tom and I moved together, the camera capturing every moment, I felt a shift in our dynamics. Mark's involvement wasn't just as a voyeur, but as an orchestrator, his control over the scene both unsettling and exhilarating. The act itself was over quickly, but the implications lingered. Mark stopped the recording, his face a mask of satisfaction, mixed with something else, perhaps pride or relief. Tom, now stepping back, looked at us both, his expression one of concern mixed with curiosity. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with unspoken questions about what this meant for our relationships, our trust, and our future. I felt a whirlwind of emotions. The physical closeness with Tom, under Mark's watchful eye, had been intense. But now, in the quiet aftermath, the reality of what we had done settled in. Mark's gaze was still on us, his eyes searching, as if looking for signs of regret or desire for more. Tom broke the silence first, his voice soft. That was unexpected. His words hung in the air, a gentle acknowledgement of the boundary we had crossed. I nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. Yes, I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. The room felt different now, charged with a new kind of energy, one that was both thrilling and terrifying. Mark finally spoke, his tone measured. I think we all needed that. His words were an attempt to normalize the situation, but they couldn't mask the complexity of our emotions. I looked at Tom, his eyes, reflecting a mix of emotions I couldn't fully decipher. There was a connection there, one that had been deepened by the intimacy we shared, yet it was overshadowed by the presence of Mark, whose role had shifted from observer to director. The night had taken us to a place where the lines between friendship and something more had blurred. Mark's suggestion to record had added a layer of surrealism, making the experience feel like a performance rather than a private moment. As I stood there, the implications of our actions began to unfold in my mind. What did this mean for our marriage? For our friendship with Tom? The thrill of morning came with a different light, both literally and metaphorically. Over coffee, the three of us sat, the previous night's events hanging over us like a thick fog. Mark was the first to speak, his voice steady. Last night was something we did together, a shared experience, he said, looking at both Tom and me. He explained that he had always harbored fantasies of watching, of sharing, but never knew how to bring it up. The trip, the setting, and the game had provided the perfect, albeit unconventional, opportunity. Tom, feeling somewhat responsible, apologized if he had overstepped, but Mark reassured him. It was my idea, my desire, Mark clarified. For me, the experience was a revelation about my own desires, about the complexities of love and trust. We agreed to discuss it further, to understand each other's feelings and boundaries. The trip, initially meant for relaxation, had turned into a journey of self-discovery and mutual understanding. As we sipped our coffee, the silence was filled with the weight of our thoughts. Mark continued, I've always felt there was more to explore in our relationship, in our lives. Last night it felt like we were all on the same page, exploring together. Tom nodded, his gaze thoughtful. I didn't expect it to go that far, but I'm not sorry it did. It was enlightening, he admitted, his voice tinged with a mix of relief and curiosity. I took a deep breath, feeling the need to express my own whirlwind of emotions. It was intense, and yes, unexpected, but it also made me question a lot about what I want, what we want as a couple, as friends. My words felt heavy, each one carrying the weight of the night before. Mark reached out, his hand covering mine. We need to talk about this, openly and honestly. We need to set boundaries, understand each other's limits and desires. This isn't just about last night, it's about how we move forward. The conversation shifted then, from the raw emotions of the night to a more analytical discussion. We talked about consent, about the implications of what we had done, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you